Hello everyone, my name is Vamsi. Recently, I came across a problem posted by Mr. Ankit Bansal. He always encourages aspirants to try solving it on their own before watching his solution. I gave it a shot and came up with a different approach. In this video, I'll walk you through my logic and explain how I solved it. Pause the video for a moment and read the problem for yourself. After reading the problem, we can understand that in a certain database, every business transaction was stored as two transactions. The first record belongs to the seller and the second record belongs to the buyer. In this format, every transaction was stored. And our task is to count the number of transactions performed by each pair of seller and buyer. And we have a condition also to do this task. The condition is the seller should not act as the buyer and the buyer should not act as the seller. If the seller act as buyer, then we have to omit him. And if the seller act as buyer, we should also ignore him when we are counting the number of transactions of that pair. Here I'm going to use concat and ceiling functions to create a column to make partition for every pair of transactions. So uh, you see here T1 T1 represents these two transactions, T2 represents these two transactions, and so on. So in this way, I have created a ID column which represents every pair of transactions. Now I'll put this in a CTE. So as of now, we know that the first record belongs to the seller and the second record belongs to the buyer. So now we are using row number function to make the compiler understand that the first record belongs to the seller and the second record belongs to the buyer. We can use transaction ID to order every partition. We can see that the seller transaction ID is less than buyer transaction ID. Actually, this is a serial. We can think of it as a serial number. So I'm using transaction ID here. I'll name this column as seller buyer identifier. So the first record in this partition, the first record belongs to the seller and the second record belongs to the buyer. So I'll put this also in CT. Name it as seller buyer identifier. Our next step is to filter out the sellers and buyers. We know the condition. The seller should not act as a buyer, and the buyer should not act as seller. So now, in every partition, The first customer ID belongs to the seller and the second customer ID belongs to the buyer. To meet the first condition, the seller ID should not present in the buyer ID. So we can filter those customers like this. This subquery, this subquery will give a list of uh, this subquery will give a list of buyers customer ID. So these are the sellers who did not act as buyers. So in this way, we can also find the buyers who did not act as customers. Sorry, who did not act as sellers. So it will give the list of customers who are sellers. See, in this way, we can find the list of sellers who did not act as buyers and the buyers who did not act as sellers. So observe the data. T1 has lost its pay because the seller of this transaction has acted as buyer. So only buyer remains in this transaction. T2 has both seller and buyer, and T3 lost its pay, T4 lost its pay, and T7 has seller and buyer. So these are the two uh, T2 and T7 are the required pays. Remaining all are filtered out. So I'm put I'm creating a CTA for this. So now we have to filter out the unwanted transactions. So I'm using max to filter out the unwanted transaction. We have to create a partition by ID and I'll name this column as valid pair identifier. I have to use seller buyer identifier. Sorry, we cannot use the max function here. We have to use count. If if in this if in this partition the two records if the two records are available, then the count will be 2. If the count will be 1, then uh, we have to omit the transaction. See, the result is not as desired. So we have to use a range also. Range between. See, for T1, only one transaction is available. For T2, both seller and buyer, both the two transactions are available. For T7 also, we can see two in the valid pair ID. Now I'll put this in a CTE, identifying valid pairs. So with this valid pair ID, you can filter out the wanted transactions only. We have to get the records which have count as 2. So only T2 and T7 are so only T2 and T7 met the given conditions. So from this now from this I'm going to make seller buyer combo. Any ID partitioning window for this. I'm going to use group concat to make this. I name this as seller buyer combo. So this will filter out the wanted pairs only. I have to use group by ID. The the pair that belongs to the transaction T2 met the condition, and T7 also met the condition. So I put these combos in a CT. Now we are going to count the number of transactions performed by each seller by a combo. Select this all and count of staff number of performed by combo. So this pair has met the condition given condition, and this pair has performed two number of transactions. I hope you find my logic helpful. If you did, please give the video a like and don't forget to subscribe for more SQL problem solving content. Thanks. Thank you.